He induced mass hysteria wherever he went. Girls' bedrooms were shrines to him, and at concerts all over the world, ambulance men had a real tough job dealing with all the swooning and fainting. Anyway, he popped in to see us the other day, and we were both getting quite nostalgic. I suppose a lot of people will be quite surprised to learn that you actually started with acting rather than singing, didn't you?
Yeah, I guess there would be a few people that would raise their eyebrows and find that a little hard to believe, but at least here, I guess because I was predominantly known as a singer and as a pop idol star, whatever you want to call that. There were lots of other names that they called me in those days, but thank God they're over. Yeah, I started actually in the theater in my first professional job was a Broadway show. And I had worked the year before when I was in the last year in high school. I was working professionally with the LA Theater Company, and you know, after I left the business for a few years, I decided I had to come back and make a business decision about how to approach coming back. How does David Cassidy come back into the business? And not just a creative decision, but a business decision. So I decided I'd come back and you know, write, and I very much wanted to make music again. But I now want to go back and do some more acting. I think that, you know, the label teen idol is a very difficult one for anybody to live down. I think that retiring after 5 years of that, touring around the world and making records, both as myself and also for the show, and working 7 days a week, I was really burned out, you know, and the media and everything. I was completely emotionally burned out, and I think that it saved my life, retiring. I think that professionally, in a way, kind of saved my life, too, because I left it on the top as opposed to waiting until it all fell apart.
So what was it?
Probably would have.
What was it about being in that position that made you decide to retire? I mean, what was your life like?
Well, I've spoken a lot about it, but I think the important thing to remember is that I'm just a guy, and I felt very undeserving. I didn't feel like I could live up to as great as David Cassidy was meant out to be. I felt somehow or another inadequate. I could never be that great. Nobody is that wonderful. Nobody is that perfect. Nobody is that fabulous. Although I do think I could. Most occasionally, no.
Is that because you think women had certain expectations of you then, that if you're this, you know, sex symbol, teen idol, you have to be absolutely amazing, and that you were frightened you might let them down?
You can't be real. You can't just be a guy. You can't spit. You can't pick your nose. You can't smoke a cigar. You can't have a drink. And I could never live up to that, because I'm absolutely imperfect, and in many ways, and I'm slightly mad, and I think the pressure of all of that, and the more successful and the more famous, and also the more locked into that image as the television company and film company that was marketing me. We were making millions of dollars, and I was on the back of a cereal box. It's very difficult to take someone like that seriously.
Well, you had a very clean-cut image, didn't you? But I mean, you weren't. You weren't holier than thou, were you? And you were quite naughty.
Yeah.
In your private life.
I was a little wild boy.
Yeah.
A bit of a wild boy. But it was the only release that, I know this doesn't justify it much, but it was the only release I really had, was that I could actually at some point be real, be what everybody else was doing, because I wasn't allowed to.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I do.
It was very difficult. I also have always had a real passion for, I guess, seeking out a relationship.
Do you have an ideal in your mind, do you think, that a perfect relationship exists somewhere?
Yeah, I think that we all have that ideal. I think that most people in life, what we're really looking for is to find somebody to complement us and to fulfill us. I think people ask me about, you know, some of the songs that I've done, my stuff as an artist. The more successful stuff I've done has been things that deal with the human condition, the relationships, or the lack of, or the loss of. and the personal pain and suffering. And I think that I always wanted to be, the grass is always green, I always wanted to be a hard rocker, you know, behind all of that. And I did some of that stuff. But in the long run, what really survives, I think, is great material about, I mean, as time goes by, what can you say? I mean, that has to be considered one of the greatest songs of all time. Great songs about what we'll be talking about in 100 years from now, I have to think, is about the human condition, about, you know, people falling in love, people, the need for that, the need to feel loved. I think that's what makes each and every one of us wake up in the morning.
Still looking in not bad nick.